Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Categorically Romance podcast. My name is Bree, and I am so excited for today's author guest. I have author Mallory Marlowe joining us. So, Mallory, thank you for joining us today. We're so happy to have you.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here.
Well, can you share with us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am a writer who lives in LA. My first book, Love and Other Conspiracies, comes out August 20th. I went to school for screenwriting. I currently work in the video games industry, but writing romance is really my passion. So I'm very, very excited for people to start reading this book.
That is so cool. Are you like LA girl born and raised or no?
No, I'm actually from New Jersey initially. I
Oh
was
my
born,
gosh.
yeah. I was born and raised there, and then I went to school in Boston and I studied screenwriting, so I came out here to work after I graduated. So I've been here for about like 7 years now.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So how the screenwriting, like what intrigued you about that? Like how did you pursue that?
Yeah, I was always a big storyteller growing up, and I was writing books when I was in middle school and through high school and stuff. But then you get to college, and you're like, okay, well, how do I like actually make a career out of this? Because it's kind of hard. It's not an easy industry, and I was just always so fascinated by film and making movies and TV shows and just media in general. So for me, it kind of felt like a natural progression, knowing that I wanted to work in Hollywood. So screenwriting it was. I got to write, I got to watch a lot of movies and TV shows and just be part of it. So that was how I chose that.
Yeah. I'm always so fascinated by screenwriters because it's like sitting down and watching a movie with one. It's like, are
Hmm.
you really watching this to enjoy it, or are you watching it and like picking it apart for all the writing parts of it?
I mean, it's kind of hard to tell because I feel like screenplays are really sparse. Like, you don't direct the actors in a way. So I like watching movies and thinking about how all of these different aspects came together. Like, who made that choice to have the actor do this? Or how did they choose, the framing and coloring? So there's so many different moving parts. So it's really cool to think about like who did what and how we made a great movie such a great movie, because it definitely
Yeah.
just one person.
Well, I have some get to know you questions. So, whatever comes to mind. The first one is share with us two of your favorite things. It can be lifelong obsessions, current obsessions, whatever.
Ooh, well, one is definitely coffee.
Love
That
that.
was
Yeah.
an easy one. I'll say coffee and video games. Two things that I
Okay.
really, really care about a lot.
We're gonna talk video games here in a little bit,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna ask. I just thought of a question that I wanted to ask, so hopefully I don't forget. But if
Yeah.
you came with a warning label, what would it say?
I think it would just say, "Oh, she's weird." Like, warning, she's an odd one.
I feel like it's okay to be weird now, though.
Totally. No,
Like back in
I
the
own
day, it was
it.
not cool to be weird.
Yeah, no, and I mean, especially like with like nerdy stuff, like it was kind of weird to be like, oh, I want to go to Comic-Con or I want to, watch all these shows. Now everyone's like all in on it. So I'm like, this is a great time to be weird.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think changed? What do you think changed?
Honestly, I think so much of it had to do with like Marvel and these like big superhero movies because like comics and stuff became cool.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like this niche thing anymore. So I really do think it was all the superhero movies that made people like pay attention and be like, oh, there's this whole world of really cool stuff out there that isn't, is a little offbeat. It's awesome.
Yeah. Who would you say is one of your, and this can be any genre,
Mhm.
most read authors?
Ooh. Um, Probably either Rachel and Solomon or Alexandria Bellafleur. I read all of their books, and
Okay.
I just am always so happy. I've never been let down.
Well, I read on your website that you tend to fall down weird internet rabbit holes. So I
Oh
need to
boy.
know, like, what's one of the most recent? I feel like we're
Yeah,
kindred spirits.
right.
What's one of the most recent ones you found yourself down?
Oh goodness. So for my newsletter that I send it out like every couple of weeks. I like to dig into like one weird unsolved thing, something just odd that maybe people don't know about. And the most recent one that I did was this video called I Feel Fantastic. And it's like this odd android and she sings, and it's just kind of creepy. Um, and like no one really knew the backstory of it. It just appeared, and so now people have done digging, and so I wrote all about the background of this weird singing robot, and like the conspiracy theories behind it. Like it's just weird. The first time I saw it, it scared me like half to death, and I didn't sleep. But I spent like a couple of hours this past week digging real deep on Tara the android.
Oh my gosh, I gotta look
Yeah.
into this now. I have to
It's
know.
creepy. If you think robots are creepy, I would advise not watching it, or at least doing it in broad daylight.
Well, what's a recent song that's gotten stuck in your head?
Oh, I feel like I mean, me and everybody else has been like just listening to a lot of Chapel Roan lately,
Mm.
and I had Red Wine Supernova stuck in my head all day yesterday. It's a bop.
We love hearing romance origin stories here.
Mhm.
So, can you share with us how you became a romance reader?
Yeah, I grew up in that like 2010s boom of YA, so like Hunger Games, Divergent, Sarah Dessen, and everything kind of had a romance arc to it, and I loved that. I loved the idea of action adventure, or people who were just like me, my age, falling in love and doing incredible things. So I just ate all of those books up. And then I kind of didn't really know where the natural progression as I got older was. And it was during the pandemic that I realized, oh my God, there is this whole genre of adult romances that are about 20 somethings and, people who I feel like I can relate to falling in love. And so that was definitely a big, like, eureka moment. I was like, oh my God, there's so many books and I have to read them all.
Yeah.
So I mean, it all came from YA, I think. And then as I grew up, I was able to find books that grew up with me. And now I have a comical amount of bookshelves in my apartment, all full of books. So it was a pretty quick skyrocket to having a lot of romance books in my house and writing them too.
Yeah, I think YA is such a sweet way to start. Like I
Yeah.
remember like I was like mid 20s when I like discovered people were talking about books online and
Yeah.
YA was huge. And I had discovered this at a time where I had really gotten back into reading.
Mhm.
And I really do, and I look back on my progression of like eventually reading romance because I did not grow up reading romance either.
Yeah.
Like I think it really started I really became intrigued because I was reading these big YA titles that
Mhm.
always had romance in them, and then eventually you're just like, "Yeah, I want a little bit more," because
Yeah.
I'm a little bit older than these
Right.
people, and but yeah, those YA romances are so good. They're
I
just so
know.
good.
They still hit too. Like, you pick up a Sarah Dessen book and you're like, this still hits all of the emotional notes that it did when I was a teenager. And I think that, there were so many great writers in that era that it speaks to their talent that you can
Yeah.
still relate to it 10, 15 years later.
Well, we talked a little bit about video games already. So I
Yeah.
need to know how working in the video game space came to you and like do you have a current fave? Cuz I've always been a Nintendo girl. So I don't
Yeah.
know what counts and what doesn't. I
It
just
all
recently got a
counts.
Switch. I love Mario, but like
Yeah.
I want to venture into the real cool, fantastical. I want to get into the cozy games. Like, what are
Yeah.
you loving video game
Um,
wise?
I have been so deep in the Baldur's Gate 3 hole for months now. I mean, it's a huge game. It's absolutely massive. And there are so many. It's an RPG, so you can make choices, and your choices affect the games, the characters. And just the scale of what they've done with that game is insane to me. Like, they have fallbacks for everything. I think about it from like a design perspective, and it makes my brain hurt. So definitely a lot of Baldur's Gate. I'm still like playing Animal Crossing, which came out literally like the first week of the pandemic, and I bought a Switch and was building my little island. So I still try and go back in and build things and stuff. And if you have a Switch, you should definitely get Animal Crossing.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's cozy. It's a little stressful, and like honestly, it is kind of a capitalism simulator because you're paying for all of this stuff, and you're basically like a public servant.
Yeah.
But it's fun and it's cute, and you make little animal friends and do all kinds of fun activities and decorate your island. So it's a great way to lose track of time.
Do you ever like I find what I find fascinating from like sitting back and watching, like my husband's a big gamer, my oldest
Yeah.
son's a big gamer. The storytelling that goes into video games
Oh yeah.
is insane.
It is crazy. And that was, part of why I wanted to go into games. And, I definitely feel the influence of all of those video games in when I write. It's just cool because they're not just thinking about one story. They're thinking about a story for every kind of person that's going to play. Like somebody who kind of just wants to grief the game and, mess everything up. Like you do kind of have to think about them too. And, the people who are going to want to talk to every single character that they possibly can. So it's really crazy. And it's super cool because TV shows are fantastic and you can sit and watch, 8 hours of like Stranger Things and be so sucked in. But in games, you're actually playing it. Like you're
Yeah,
doing
you're
it.
interacting with the story. Yeah.
You feel like you're in so much more control. And I just think you're so much more immersed because you feel like you're a participant in it, which is really cool.
Well, we are here to talk about your upcoming book. And when I
Yes.
first heard about Love and Other Conspiracies, at first I was sold on the title alone. I was like, enough said. And then I kept reading, publicists are sending you it's like X-Files meets BuzzFeed Unsolved. And I'm like, what? Like this, I'm such a weird TV lover that immediately I was like, did she write this book for me? So can you share with listeners, tell us what it's about?
So, Love and Other Conspiracies is about a digital media producer named Hallie who is kind of down on her luck. She has recently broken up with her boyfriend, who she also works with, and kind of left her down and out without a show to work on at their company. And she is given the chance to participate in a company competition where she has to create a web series, but she doesn't know where to start. And the person that she ends up discovering and working with is a man named Hayden, who is the host of a Cryptids and Conspiracy Theories podcast. And she just thinks he's so charismatic and hot. And he would make a great subject for her show. But unfortunately, he's not really good on camera. He's great behind the mic, but he kind of freezes up. But he comes to life when he has a co-star with her, and their banter and chemistry just pops, and they end up hosting the show together. So it is about their adventures creating a season of their TV show or their web series, and falling in love in the process as they hunt for ghosts and aliens and Bigfoot and Mothman and all they'll hunt for anything.
I mean, this sounds very workplace romance to me, and I love
Yes.
those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
what were you doing in life that this book came to you? Like, how did we get this?
I've always been a really big fan of like ghost adventures and, monster hunting shows. Like I grew up with all the History Channel and Travel Channel, Sci-Fi Channel docuseries about hunting monsters and stuff. And I always just kind of thought it would be a really fun setting for a romance book. Like there's just so many opportunities for calamity and silliness. So it was November 2020, which I mean, great time to disappear into a romance novel right as the election's happening.
Definitely needed. Definitely.
Yeah. And it was a very different story back then. But the core of it has remained the same, that they end up hosting the show together because she's a total non-believer and he's all about the conspiracies. And so the dynamic has stayed pretty much the same from start to finish. And I just thought it would be a really fun fall book to write at the time. And here we are now.
So how did you're writing it at, 2020.
Yeah.
How do we get it published? Like, how are we getting it now?
Yeah. So it kind of took a back seat for a little while as I was figuring out exactly what I wanted to do. And like it went through a bunch of different iterations where they did different careers or it was set in different locations. So it definitely took some trial and error to help it find its final form. But in the winter of 2022, I decided like, okay, I'm going to do this for real. I'm going to make this book happen. I feel like this one has a chance. There's something really special about it. So I drafted it and revised, and then I did a mentorship program called Kiss Pitch, where I worked with the mentor to do another revision and have somebody who's, an author help me really finesse it. And I worked with an author called named Kat Turner, and she was so helpful in making this book what it became. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And after that mentorship program, I queried it in the summer of 2022. And I got an agent rather quickly, and we sold it in the fall of 2022. And then, since then it's been revisions and copy edits, line edits, covers, all kinds of publicity stuff. So it's been a 4-year journey, and I'm really excited that it's going to end up out in the world.
Yeah, what do you think it is, like, culturally that we need? Like, I'm always, when I chat with friends, they're like, I want more weird romances.
Yeah.
And I feel weird even saying that this book is weird, because I'm like, I watch this stuff all the time. So it doesn't feel weird. But like, what do you think it is that we are so interested in stories like this now?
I think that people kind of want to, I mean, kind of like what you're saying, people want to see themselves, and people are just inherently odd. Like, we all are. I don't trust anybody who says they're not weird.
Yeah.
Like, we all are, and that's okay. Like, it's totally cool to be kind of weird. I think, yeah, people want to see themselves, and especially as millennial and Gen Z readers are, in hitting their 20s, 30s and stuff, we really want to see people who are like our friends. So I think that we're kind of looking for almost like a companionship in a way. And, I think that people are just more excited they're just more excited for the odd stuff, because they've, you don't always get it. You don't always see it. It's not, we get a lot of beach reads and, bakery books and stuff, and those are fantastic. But sometimes you kind of want to change it up and do something a little spicy.
Right. I mean, I want to talk about Bigfoot in a romance novel. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I love hearing behind the scenes details. So is there a cool behind the scenes detail of while you were writing the book that you can share with us? Like, did you watch anything? Did you listen to anything? A detail. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I mean, to get a sense of what Hayden's podcast would be like and how that's going to translate into a web series. And through that, I actually got an idea for another book that is ending up as my second book. It was totally something that I just jotted down on a Post-it and was like, yeah, I'll never be able to pull that off. And then it ended up actually becoming what will be my second book. So that was a fun tidbit that happened behind the scenes. But I think what was fun is that it's changed locations. It was initially set in Boston, where I went to school. Hayden is from Boston. And so all the locations that they go to were different. So I kind of wrote a whole bunch of them going all these places that don't end up in the book because it's just changed hands. So places like the Lizzie Borden house, or there's a haunted hotel in Boston that they stayed at. And I think at one point they went to New York and hunted down some, haunted New York locations. So they've gone a lot of places in my head.
Yeah.
But it's, it's been cool to take them all these places. And, the ones that ended up in the book now are West Coast mostly, with the exception of West Virginia when they go hunting for Mothman.
One of my favorites, by the way, I have to say.
I think he's everyone's favorite. He's so lovable.
Oh my gosh. That and Skinwalker Ranch is one of my, I rewatched that. The show was a comfort show. I just put it on as background.
Yeah, that place really freaks me out.
Yeah.
I know that there's definitely proof that maybe they might have been fudging that truth a little bit, since the owners beforehand didn't have these experiences, but still freaks me out.
Yes.
I would move really fast. If there were aliens and all kinds of cattle mutilations happening on my farm, I would be out of there.
Out of there, right.
Really fast.
Well, do you have a particular favorite conspiracy or weird thing?
Man, I love a good alien conspiracy. I'm an Aquarius, and the big thing with Aquarius is that the emojis with all these horoscope apps are always aliens. Aquariuses are weird. Woo. So I think that that's kind of natural. I love a good alien conspiracy, but I think that I have kind of been growing a deeper appreciation for like JFK assassination conspiracies. Mostly because of how broad it is. Like, it does kind of touch on everything. There's alien theories, there's government
There are.
cover-up theories, there's all kinds of stuff. So it's really far-reaching, and just the amount of information and theories out there is really cool. So I feel like if you're like looking to go down a rabbit hole that kind of doesn't end, that's a pretty good one to do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't realize until I watched this show, History's Greatest Mysteries on History Channel with
Yeah, I
Lawrence
love that one.
Fishburne. You love it? It's so
Yeah.
good. I didn't realize that there were all these conspiracies around his assassination. I was like, "What? He
Yeah.
wasn't just murdered?" So
Yeah, no,
that is it.
me and my roommate recently just watched this one where it was like the doctors at the hospital that operated on him, like after the shooting, and like what they saw, and I was like, oh my god, this is fascinating
This is
because
fascinating, yeah. Is
I,
it him that,
I'm
like,
like,
they don't know where the brain his brain
yeah,
okay, okay.
yeah,
Listeners, you guys have to do the research on your own,
I
okay?
know.
We can't spoil it for you.
You're gonna have to go find where JFK's brain is. Yeah. I mean, it was just like I'm watching it. I'm like, that's not what the report said. They were lying to us.
Oh my
But yeah, it's
gosh.
such a deep rabbit hole. It's really interesting.
Well, are you working on I'm hoping you're working on, like, the book that came to you as you were listening to the podcasts, but, like, what are you working on anything that you can tell us about?
Yeah, I just turned in edits on book two, which is the one that I was mentioning before. The first chapter will be in the back of Love and Other Conspiracies. So when the print book is out, everybody can read and get a preview of that one. I'm really excited about it. It's honestly some of the most fun I've ever had writing, because it's just a little bonkers, and I just really love the characters. But right now, I'm kind of like just playing in my own sandbox. So nothing I can really talk about, but just sort of experimenting and pushing my skills further and figuring out where I can go next with my book. So I'm playing, and that's been really fun so far.
Well, where can everyone follow you online?
Yeah, so they can find me on Instagram, where I'm definitely most active, at Mallory Marlowe Writes, and then on Twitter I am at Mallory_Marlowe. It frustrates me to no end that they don't match.
It's
But somebody else got there first. That's fine.